Right friends, welcome back to English comprehension and vocabulary. This is the 15th session and we are going to deliberate yesterday's editorial of the business line, that is a bankable idea, and tomorrow we are going to deliberate on the editorial of Economic Times today, that is collect tax but don't terrorize taxpayers. Why I am announcing one day in advance is, please go through this editorial in advance, and while we are discussing you will be quite comfortable to learn the meanings and essence of the passage. That is the main reason why I am disclosing tomorrow's article today itself. And here a bankable idea, this is with regard to the idea of PARA, P-A-R-A, Public Sector Asset Rehabilitation Agency. You may have a doubt what is meant by PARA. Before going into it, let us look at the issue of non-performing assets in the banking sector when the interest or principal or both is not paid for more than 90 days. It becomes a non-performing asset. Non-performing assets will drag the balance sheets of banks, and public sector banks are worst affected. To come out of that situation, now another agency, that is the PARA, is being proposed. This is proposed in economic survey which was presented on 31st January, and now I would like to spend 1 or 2 minutes on this non-performing assets. When non-performing assets are there, to solve non-performing assets there are two ways. One way is when there is a genuine reason. When there is no genuine reason, I listed out. When there is a genuine reason, corporate debt restructuring mechanism is there. Corporate debt restructuring mechanism, you have learnt it through the banking modules, and if you want more, please go through this PPT. I am not going in detail now. And at the same time, there are 6 ways of solving non-performing assets. One is debt recovery tribunals. This is a failure because it is being dragged on for 10 years, 20 years. Second point is asset reconstruction companies. These are established in private sector, and this is not giving desired result because of 2 reasons. They are asking at lower valuations, and second thing is public sector banks are fearing to sell non-performing assets to private asset reconstruction companies because of vigilance and CBI problems. Then at the same time, criminal cases can be filed when there is a willful default. Then winding up petitions in a court of law can be filed, and strategic debt restructuring. Under strategic debt restructuring, these banks can take the management control and they can change the management by taking ownership. And next one is S4A. S4A is basically bifurcating debt into sustainable debt and equity or quasi-equity, and we learnt about these things several times. And now economic survey is proposing PARA. PARA means Public Sector Asset Rehabilitation Agency. This was mentioned in economic survey 16-17, and here a fine balance is to be maintained between institutional accountability and autonomy, and PSBs must agree to the losses. So here, to come out of non-performing assets problem, this Public Sector Asset Rehabilitation Agency was proposed, and this editorial is with regard to this PARA, Public Sector Asset Rehabilitation Agency, and a bankable idea. What is the meaning of a bankable idea? Then at the same time, government run ARC to mop up NPAs would require checks and balances. This is bankable idea is the headline, and one line is there, that is a government run ARC. This PARA is nothing but in the form of asset reconstruction company, and this is government will run this company, and this PARA has to mop up NPAs, and that require checks and balances. So we would like to see what is the meaning of bankable. Bankable has got two meanings. The first meaning is likely to make more money. You can say so and so Bollywood's actress is bankable. That means when that actress is taken for the film, then the producer may make lot of money. So, bankable is used in the sense that when it is likely to make money, and she is Bollywood's most bankable actress. That means a lot of money is expected to be accrued when a film is made with a so and so actress. And bankable means probability of success will be high. When something is expected to produce success, that means when higher probability of success is there, then you can use this word bankable. You see, ONGC Videsh is procuring several oil wells abroad, and this is a bankable idea, you can say. That means there is every possibility of success. Under those circumstances, you can use. So, the strategy of ONGC Videsh to acquire assets abroad is bankable. That means it is expected to met with high success rate. So, one is making money, second one is high success rate. And here a bankable idea, that means this idea is expected to be successful. That is the meaning of this headline. Then government run asset reconstruction company, that is the PARA, is expected to mop up NPAs. Mop up, you should know about mop up. Mop up means to clean up something or to rectify a problem. Sometimes you use the floor is to be mopped up. The floor is to be mopped up. That means it is to be cleared of something. So, he has to keep the room neat and clean. Similarly, when a problem is there, that problem is to be rectified, and rectification of that problem, you can use this mop up word. So, example I have given, asset reconstruction companies are not able to mop up bad loans, not able to rectify the problem of bad loans. So, mop up means to clean up something and to rectify a problem, right. So, this example is quite clear to you. And the next one, checks and balances. What is the meaning of checks and balances? This word you quite often come across. Checks and balances means rules normally in government organizations are framed in such a way that no person will have too much power. There will be some checks and balances. You see, Indian democracy. In Indian democracy, no one can exercise ultimate power. Indian democracy is built on judiciary, executive, legislative. So, three organs are there, and three organs are made independent so as to act as checks and balances one over the other. If executive is exceeding some limit, then judiciary will intervene, and if legislative is exceeding some limit, judiciary will intervene. So, here checks and balances are there in every government organization. Basically, checks and balances means rules intended to prevent one person or group from having too much power within an organization. So, what is the meaning of this overall? It is a bankable idea. It is expected to meet with success. A government run ARC or PARA to mop up NPAs, to rectify the problem of NPAs would require checks and balances, right. So, it requires a lot many things to ensure that things are done in proper way. So, the rules should be framed in such a way that no person or no authority should be absolute. There must be some checks and balances. Look into the next one, the crackdown on high profile defaulter, Vijay Mallya. All of you are familiar with Vijay Mallya. The crackdown on high profile defaulter Vijay Mallya may be making headlines. Nowadays in newspapers, crackdown on high profile. crackdown. What is the meaning of crackdown? That is the way of dealing with bad or illegal behavior in a severe way, not normal way, severe way. The crackdown must be there on the tax defaulters. To prevent tax evasion, there must be crackdown on tax offenders. Crackdown means tackling the thing in a severe way, not normal way. So, tackling the bad or illegal behavior in a severe way, then only you have to use crackdown. Look at the example of Philippines. Philippines, what the president is doing? The Philippines president is ordering shooting the drug peddlers. When somebody is doing illegal trade in drugs, the police were given orders to shoot at sight. So, the crackdown on the drug mafia in Philippines paid rich dividends. That means it gave good results, right? The next word is high profile. High profile means attracting lot of attention and interest from the public, media, social media. So, attracting lot of attention and interest from the public or media is high profile. Donald Trump is one of the high profile presidents of the world as on date, right. So, let us go back to the passage. This is the crackdown on high profile defaulter Vijay Mallya may be making headlines, but there can be no escaping the urgent need. You cannot escape. There is urgent need, but there can be no escaping the urgent need means there is an urgent need. You cannot escape. But there can be no escaping the urgent need to stem the rising tide of gross NPAs. To stem the urgent need to stem the rising tide of gross NPAs. To stem. Under what circumstances this stem is to be used? Basically, stem is to be used to prevent unwanted things from spreading or increasing. To prevent unwanted things from spreading or increasing. Under those circumstances, this stem is to be used. And the curfew was imposed to stem the rising violence. Violence is increasing in some city in our country. Curfew will be imposed, and curfew was imposed to stem the rising violence. And stem is to be used only when unwanted things are rising. When the desirable things are rising, you cannot use this word. This word is to be used to stop spreading or increasing unwanted things, undesirable things like violence, drug peddlers, like that. Then only you have to use this word stem, right. So, mounting. The NPAs are mounting. What is the meaning of mounting? Mounting means gradually increasing. So, NPAs are increasing gradually in recent times. So, the mounting NPAs is the biggest challenge for public sector banks. Right. Let us come back to the paragraph. The paragraph says the crackdown on high profile defaulter Vijay Mallya may be making headlines, but you cannot escape the urgent need to stem the rising tide of gross NPAs, right. To tackle the rising tide of gross NPAs, which are at present 9% of total bank lending or 4.5% of GDP. That is why the situation is alarming. It amounts to rupees 6.75 lakh crore and mounting. Mounting means increasing. So, this paragraph says there is an urgent need to tackle the menace of gross non-performing assets, right. So, look at the next paragraph. Next paragraph says that these have applied these non-performing assets. They are 4.5% of GDP, 9% of total lendable resources of the banking system, and this have applied the brakes on lending by banks. These have applied brakes on lending by banks. What is the meaning of this? The meaning is when banks are facing problem of 9% of gross non-performing assets, they are not showing interest on lending further to corporates. They are not interested in lending further to corporates. So, that is the meaning of this. Have applied brakes on lending by banks and investment by the indebted corporates concerned. What is meant by indebted? Owing money to some person. In the corporate sector, indebtedness is quite high in our country. Indebtedness is quite high in our country. That means these corporates are owing lot of money to the banking system and financial system. So, in the corporate sector, indebtedness is quite high in our country. So, here the investment by the indebted corporates concerned. So, corporates are into the debt trap. That means they borrowed lot of money and they are not able to pay back. That is why they are not investing. Banks are not giving loans to corporates. So, this became twin balance sheet problem. We have discussed in economic survey last year. This became twin balance sheet problem. Banks are not able to lend to corporates because of high NPAs, and corporates are also suffering because of more indebtedness. So, it became twin balance sheet problem. Private investment. Private investment, what is the meaning? This is the investment by the private sector had actually started to shrink by 2015-16, and in 2016-17 so far it seems to have contracted by more than 7%. Contracted, it is reducing. Contracted, opposite is expansion or expanding. Normally the investment is expected to expand plus 6%, plus 7%, but now what happened? It contracted by 7%. Instead of growth, contraction is there in the private investment. The economic survey 2017 states. So, banks are in problems, corporates are in problems. So, somehow government has to clear this mess, right. So, that is the meaning of this paragraph. Clearly, the approach to non-performing assets cannot be business as usual. In the normal way, this problem cannot be solved. That is the meaning of this sentence. Sometimes you come across a sentence like cannot be business as usual. That means certain things cannot be solved by following normal approach. So, the problem of NPAs cannot be solved if you follow the normal as usual approach. So, something is to be done, something more requires to be done. That is the meaning of this sentence. Acknowledging, that means recognizing that the RBI and the center are running out of options. I have already told you there are several mechanisms for solving NPAs. I listed out around 7 mechanisms like S4A, strategic debt restructuring, debt recovery tribunals, ARCs, corporate debt restructuring. There are several ways. Here acknowledging that RBI and the center are running out of options. There are several options, but problem is not solved. That is why he used this. There are several options on paper, but problem is not solved. Problem is as usual and it is mounting, right. So, the survey has mooted a none too novel idea of a bad bank. The survey has mooted. What is the meaning of mooted? Moot means something, to suggest something as an idea for discussion. It is, you can say, draft stage. Some idea is mooted by somebody. Now, universal basic income is mooted by somebody. That is just some suggestion. Lot more discussion has to take place before actually implementing it. Now, this idea is mooted in the economic survey. Government owned asset reconstruction company, or you can say government run asset reconstruction company, is mooted by the economic survey authors. Mooted means to suggest something as an idea for discussion. The idea of GST was mooted long back and now it is becoming a reality. Mooted means some suggestion, right. So, here this survey has mooted a none too novel idea of a bad bank. None too novel. Please look into this. Novel. Let us look at the meaning of none too novel. What is the meaning of novel? Novel means original, new. This is heard for the first time, then only you have to use novel. Novel means new, original and not like anything seen before. For the first time we are hearing that word, then only you have to use novel idea. Here none too novel idea. That means none too novel means not very new, not very new. That means it is known for some time, you can say. So, none too novel idea. So, I gave one example with none too happy. He seems to be none too happy to attend alumni meet because of his bad childhood experiences. He has studied in Presidency College, Kolkata, and because of his bad childhood experiences, he is not interested to attend alumni meet after 25 years because everyone in those days stated that so and so was totally useless person. That is why he is now not interested to attend alumni meet. So, he seems to be none too happy. Similarly, none too novel means not very new concept, not very original concept. Let us go back to the passage. The approach to NBS cannot be business as usual. Acknowledging that RBI and the center are running out of options, the survey has mooted a none too novel idea of a bad bank, the public sector asset rehabilitation agency with 49% government ownership. Here, the main purpose and how it differentiates with asset reconstruction companies is, here it is proposed with 49% government ownership. That is why the public sector banks, when they are selling bad loans to PARA, may not think much about vigilance and CBI. Previously, when public sector banks are selling bad loans to asset reconstruction companies owned by private sector, then there was a fear of vigilance and CBI. Now, when government holds 49%, then the bank managers may not have any fear of selling bad loans to PARA, even though the valuation may be quite low. That is the meaning. Right. Let us look at the next paragraph. The next paragraph is, it appears that earlier efforts to clean up the mess. What is the meaning of mess? Here mess means two meanings. One is literal meaning. Here you see the kitchen is too dirty. Under those circumstances, you can use this. Please go and clean up that mess in the kitchen. The kitchen is too dirty and you are asking someone, please go and clean up that mess in the kitchen. Similarly, you can use this when things are not in the right situation, when things are untidy, when the things are dirty, and when the cases are dragging on for 20 years, 30 years in the courts, then you can say there are several messy court cases in our country, right. So, mess means here something which looks dirty or untidy, right. So, here please go and clean up that mess in the kitchen. So, normally this word is used to say something about unpleasant situation. Please understand finally, when we are using mess in normal circumstances, it clearly indicates about unpleasant situations. Here it appears that earlier efforts to clean up the mess, why he used this? Because non-performing assets is not a pleasant situation. Non-performance assets are unpleasant situation only, no one wants non-performing assets. So, that is why he used mess to clean up that dirty situation and start on a clean slate have not helped enough. You see here one dash, here another dash, in between he is explaining what are those. So, leave that portion, leave that entire portion and complete the sentence, then you will understand everything. Then read something in between those lines that gives explanation about that, right. It appears that earlier efforts to clean up the mess and start on a clean slate have not helped enough. What are those measures that is given here? The 5/25 scheme, that is for infrastructure projects. Banks can give loans up to 25 years and they can come out after 5 years through refinancing, that is 5/25 scheme. That is one such scheme given by the Reserve Bank of India. Then strategic debt restructuring, I have already told you about S4A, then asset reconstruction companies, as I have already told you. So, these things, there are several mechanisms available, but they have not helped enough. There were several mechanisms to clean up this mess, but they have not given desired results. It appears that earlier efforts to clean up the mess and start on a clean slate. Clean slate means leaving everything behind, start afresh. Leave everything behind, start afresh. That is a clean slate. Fresh negotiations are going to be started with the stakeholders with a clean slate. This is very important. So, here starting an activity or process, again leaving what has happened in the past. You leave everything what unpleasant situation happened in the past. That unpleasant non-performing assets are to be taken out of banks' balance sheets and banks can start on clean slate. That is the meaning, right. So, this passage is, this paragraph is quite clear, and here mess, other one is clean slate, that has not happened with the existing mechanisms. That is the meaning of this passage, this paragraph. Look at the next paragraph. Para is expected to clean up the balance sheets of banks. Balance sheets, what is the meaning? Balance sheet means companies are declaring, public limited companies have to declare their balance sheets once in 3 months. Balance sheets says assets on one side, liabilities on the other side. Assets, liabilities. So, balance sheet is the statement showing the company's assets, liabilities at a particular time. So, here Para is expected to clean up the balance sheets. So, the bad loans will be transferred to Para. Then banks can start with clean slate, leaving everything behind to Para, right, leaving them free to lend without difficulties, without any problems, without encumbrance, without any problems. The meaning is without any problems. Look at the meaning of encumbrance. Encumbrance means, you see, there are two meanings. One is free from difficulties. The family is free from all encumbrances. There are no difficulties. The family is free from all encumbrances. And the legal meaning of encumbrance is legal claim on a property. Here you see some X has taken loan from State Bank of India. X has taken loan from State Bank of India and this house was given as collateral property. House was given as collateral property and if A fails to pay back, then this State Bank of India will take away this house. So, State Bank of India will have legal claim over that property, that is known as encumbrance. So, when you are selling some property, people ask for unencumbrance certificate, or you can say EC, encumbrance certificate. That means no legal claim by anyone else. So, encumbrance meaning is legal claim on a particular property is encumbrance and the other meaning is free from all difficulties or problems. So, here in the paragraph, banks then can lend without any problems, without any difficulties. That is the meaning of leaving them free to lend without encumbrance, right. Even as they are recapitalized to the extent of the write downs. Here even as means almost at the same moment. at the same moment. The meaning of even as is at the very same moment or in the same way. Look at this example. One old man is dying, he has some property, and even as he lay dying, they argued over his property. So, at the same moment he lay dying, people, that means his successors are arguing over his property. So, even as means at the very same moment. Next one is write down. Write down means a reduction in the value of an asset in a company's accounts. Balance sheets we have seen, one side assets and the other side liabilities. Then write down means reduction in the value of an assets of a company. That means when the loans are written off, then banks' assets will come down. Indian public sector banks may have to write down NPAs worth billions of dollars. They are not paying back. They have to write down, that means they have to reduce the value of asset from their books. Right. So, let us go back to the passage. The passage says that even as they are recapitalized to the extent of the write downs. So, government is recapitalizing. Recapitalization means when the capital is reduced, government is giving money for recapitalization, right. So, at the same moment they are recapitalization, they are recapitalized to the extent of the write downs. Because of write downs, their assets will come down and government is recapitalizing them. It appears that the budget set aside means kept aside rupees 10,000 crore for bank recapitalization against last year's rupees 25,000 crore with a view to arriving at greater clarity on the problem before committing the money. So, this year 10,000 crores is given, last year 25,000 crores, probably this year 10,000 crore is given with a view to arriving at greater clarity on the problem before committing the money. RBI Deputy Governor Viral Acharya has observed that a bad bank will have to be designed right for it to work. A bad bank, that is a para, is to be designed in a right way to make it work, because there are several failures in recent times as far as solving this non-performing assets is concerned. Right. Let us look at the next paragraph. Next paragraph says that there are over 20 asset reconstruction companies in our country. There are more than 20 asset reconstruction companies, many of them private players, private ARCs according to the survey. According to the survey, in between two commas means additional information. Private ARCs according to the survey have not picked up more than 4 to 5% of the book value of the NPAs. They have not picked up more than 4 to 5% of total NPAs. So, they have not purchased more than 4-5%. That is why this problem was not solved. This is because public sector banks, this is because means reason he is giving, because public sector banks on the one hand are not willing to write down losses to the extent that the ARCs would like, fearing vigilance repercussions. When the write downs, when the losses are more, there is a very possibility that the CBI or vigilance may enter, because most of the ARCs are in private sector. If public sector bank is selling bad loans to some asset reconstruction company owned by private sector, then there is a very possibility some allegations may come on the bank management. So, fearing vigilance repercussions, while on the other the ARCs cannot offer more than asset resolution when asset resolution is difficult. ARCs are not offering more money, they want to purchase for lesser value, but public sector banks are not willing to sell, fearing vigilance repercussions, right. So, it remains to be seen how para will work where others have not. Others could not work, how para will work now, that is to be seen, that remains to be seen. And repercussions means here bad effect that an action or event has on something. If the decision is taken by public sector banks now, then there may be bad after effect like vigilance cases, right. The repercussions of allowing Chinese submarines in our backyard are quite severe. So, the repercussions means the bad after effects, right. A fine balance between institutional accountability and autonomy is called for. A fine balance between accountability. Accountability means a situation in which someone is responsible for things that happen, and at the same time autonomy. Autonomy means the organization must be independent, right. So, this accountability and autonomy are to be balanced. Next point is, while PARA as a government owned entity, as I have already told you, PARA is going to have 49% government shareholding, and things are not clear. If only 49% is government ownership, then you cannot call it government owned entity. There is some contradiction in this editorial. Leave it aside, because the final parameters pertaining to PARA are yet to be decided. While PARA as a government owned entity may be able to bring various creditors on board to agree on write downs. So, various creditors means banks which have given loans, creditors, debtors. You should have clear understanding between creditors and debtors. Creditors means the person who gave loan, debtors means the persons or companies who have taken loan. So, creditors and debtors, and here PARA has to take the creditors on board. What is the meaning of on board? On board means for specific purpose everybody should be brought onto the platform. Here you see one example I have given. For Swachh Bharat, to make it successful, village level government administration must be taken on board to make Swachh Bharat a success. On board means everyone connected with it must be involved for a specific purpose. That is why we call it on board, right. Here may be able to bring various creditors on board. That means all the banking sector professionals, or you can say bank management, must cooperate, must agree for write downs. It would also have to show urgency in recovering the monies. PARA not only making this bank management to agree for write downs, but also at the same time it would also have to show urgency in recovering the monies. Even with the bankruptcy code coming into play, all of you are familiar with bankruptcy and insolvency code which came up in the year 2016. Basically, the bankruptcy and insolvency code is vested with the debt problem of corporates as well as individuals, and it facilitates faster resolution when company is into some debt problems. Then enabling the judiciary to put an end to protracted liquidation proceedings. Even with the bankruptcy code coming into play, enabling the judiciary to put an end to protracted liquidation proceedings. Because bankruptcy code, when it comes into picture, then subsequently what will happen, this judiciary protracted proceedings will be reduced, right. Totally this bankruptcy code will put an end to protracted liquidation proceedings. Protracted means prolong for longer time. Protracted meaning, please look into here. Here lasting for a long time, made to last longer than necessary. So, the protracted negotiations with government employees yielded desired results. Protracted means normally when something or some decision or some discussions are taking longer time than necessary, then only you have to use protracted. When something is taking longer time than necessary, then only you have to use protracted. So far, court cases are taking protracted liquidation cases. What is meant by liquidation? Liquidation means a situation in which a company stops operating and sells all its assets in order to pay back the debts. When company is into losses, when it is not able to pay back to the creditors, then what will happen? Company will be wind up and subsequently the company's assets will be sold and they will pay their debt subsequently. So, liquidation means it has got this meaning, and the 200-year-old company has gone into liquidation due to the changed global scenario. Right here, let us go back to the paragraph here. Bankruptcy code will put an end to protracted liquidation proceedings. Present day, these liquidation proceedings are taking several years. That is why he used the word protracted. Para must be guided by an approach to revive industry wherever possible. Para should work with an intention of reviving industry wherever possible. Right. So, if you look at the next paragraph, the RBI governor has rightly pointed to the need for pragmatism in dealing with the fraught issue of NPAs. Pragmatic. What is the meaning of pragmatic? The issue of NPAs is the fraught issue of NPAs. Here you see pragmatic. Pragmatic means when a person is taking decisions based on ground realities in a sensible way than going by fixed rules or fixed theories. You see, the ground reality may be different. Some ground situation may require some decision to be taken in a sensible way, and taking a decision in a sensible way rather than based on facts, rather than based on fixed theories or fixed ideas or fixed rules is pragmatic. Here the district collector is highly pragmatic in solving the problems of rural areas. Don't go strictly by rule book. Take decisions based on the situation. That is pragmatic. Right. So, here he used this word. The RBI governor rightly pointed to the need for pragmatism in dealing with fraught issue of NPAs. Fraught means full of unpleasant things. You have to use this word for unpleasant things, not for pleasant things. So, this is full of unpleasant things such as problems or dangers. I gave one example. The negotiations between Tata and Docomo, they are into dispute. Tata Docomo, all of you are familiar with, they are into dispute now. The negotiations between Tata and Docomo were fraught with undesired circumstances. Fraught you have to use when unpleasant situation is there. Here NPAs are also unpleasant, that is why he used the word fraught. So, here the governor has rightly pointed to the need for pragmatic, practical, sensible approach in dealing with the unpleasant issue of NPAs. This entails the recognition as spelled out in the survey that NPAs are an economic problem, not a morality play. More than morality, it is an economic problem, and you may want the meaning of entails. Entails means to make something necessary. Here you see investments in non-banking financial companies give greater returns, no doubt, but it entails high risk, right. Then repairing this old house will entail spending a lot of money, right. So, entail is used under those circumstances, and the next word is morality. Morality means the righteousness, honesty and acceptable by one and all. So, this is morality. One example I have given, the morality of some of our politicians is not up to the mark, right. So, let us go back to the paragraph. The paragraph clearly says that this entails the recognition as spelled out in the survey that NPAs are an economic problem, not a morality play. Right? People are thinking that it is a moral problem, but more than moral problem, it is economic problem, because economy is affected because of twin balance sheet problem. The shenanigans over Malia notwithstanding, here we are going to look at the shenanigans. What is the meaning of this word shenanigans? Shenanigans means the secret of dishonest activities All of you are familiar with Vijay Mallya's activities in recent times. Nowadays, several business shenanigans are exposed through newspapers. So, shenanigans is to be used, the secret of dishonest activities. The secret of dishonest activities, you use the word shenanigans. They are being exposed through newspapers and social media nowadays. And notwithstanding means despite the fact. Notwithstanding means despite the fact. Injuries notwithstanding, the Indian hockey team won the tournament. There are injuries to several persons, but despite the fact that several persons are affected by injuries, but still Indian hockey team won the tournament. So, notwithstanding means despite the fact. So, shenanigans, so please understand this word, it is a secret or a dishonest activities. Here, why he used this word he used because of the reason the shenanigans over Mallya, because lot of secret operations are coming out nowadays through newspapers. The shenanigans over Mallya notwithstanding, right, it is an economic problem, not a morality play, comma, the shenanigans over Mallya notwithstanding. Despite the fact that several immoral acts of Vijay Mallya are coming to the forefront, this is a fact, but still you have to consider it as an economic problem. Ultimately, the objective should be to get credit growth back to double digit rates with checks and balances to deal with irregularities. I have already told you about checks and balances are required for efficient functioning, and the ultimate goal is to put the credit growth back to double digit rates. Let us look at the next paragraph. The next paragraph is, I think it is completed, and finally the conclusion what is given here is ultimately the editorial says that it is economic problem, and ultimately the objective should be to get credit growth back to double digit rates. We have seen just now credit is contracting, and ultimate aim is to put the credit on the growth path and with checks and balances to deal with irregularities. So, these are the aspects as far as this editorial is concerned, and tomorrow we are going to deliberate editorial on in the Economic Times, today's Economic Times, one editorial, that is collect tax but don't terrorize taxpayers. You collect tax but don't terrorize taxpayers. This we are going to deliberate tomorrow, and have a nice day. Thank you. Thanks a lot for watching this program.